Thanks for sticking with us here on ARC Florida. I'm Sam Kerrigan.
And I'm Matt Lincoln. We got Jim Grimes here on the couch with us to talk about all these people, millions of Americans that are hooked on the skinny shot.
Yeah, weight loss drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy have helped millions of people drop weight and improve their type 2 diabetes. The drugs are called GLP-1s, and they're so popular, the big pharmaceutical companies who produce them can't keep up with the demand.
So, of course, that's going to lead to other people filling in the gaps here,
That's
right?
right.
That's causing all sorts of problems.
Exactly. Those other people are compound pharmacies. So a lot of people have to use a compound pharmacy if they have a specific medication that needs to be mixed just for them, customized, if you will. Well, now the compound pharmacies are in the business of selling GLP-1s, and they are killing it. The business has been booming. In fact, we were just talking about the commercials now for her and his and there's just a myriad of these different companies that are getting into mass producing GLP-1s, but they're all compound pharmacies, and they're kind of filling that gap. Now, the underlying story here is because the pharmaceutical companies who did all the R&D and they spent lots of money creating these medications, they can't fill the demand. So right now we've got a shortage. And these compound pharmacies are allowed to do that because the FDA gives them the approval. And the question is, what happens if the FDA changes its mind?
That's very interesting. Do you get the sense doing all this research that these companies can't fill the demand or are not filling the demand? Because obviously the price keeps going up higher and higher, and now all of a sudden here comes these compound pharmacies that are trying to get in on it.
Right. Remember when you were in economics class and we talked about supply and demand?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of thought out there that, if we keep the demand high, and the supply's low, we can pretty much charge what we want. The jury's still out whether or not that's what's happening, but the pharmaceutical companies have not been able to keep up with the demand. And you have to ask yourself, at first they were selling these drugs to people with type 2 diabetes. Now they've become widely popular for other uses as well, just recently for kidney disease and for heart disease. So a lot of people are being prescribed these so people can drop some weight and get healthier.
Right.
At the end of the day, what's going to happen is these pharmaceutical companies are going to eventually get to the point where they're making enough so that they can produce them. But in the meantime, the FDA is saying, no, we need the compound pharmacies to step in and fill the gap. The compound pharmacies, as it turns out, are selling them at a lower price. And you have to ask yourself, well, are we going to be charged more if we don't have that option and have to go with the brand names? It's probably yes.
And you've got a special piece for us, so we're about to watch, right?
I don't think it's on yet, but tonight at 5 o'clock, I think. Is that right?
No, we're running now.
Is that right? Okay, well, there you go. Well, let's go ahead and show that.
Bruce Cohen still remembers the conversation he had with his doctor 7 years ago about a new drug to manage his diabetes.
There's something else that's just kind of hitting the market, and it also has a weight loss benefit, because at the time I was about 35, 40 pounds heavier than I am now.
Cohen says it was the kickstart he needed to adopt a healthier lifestyle. Not only did he look and feel better by taking Ozempic, but he became more active.
In the big scheme of things, how much did that medication play a role in your health today?
100%. 100%. Better living through chemistry.
But like millions of other Americans with type 2, Cohen quickly found the medication was getting hard to find.
I have gone a couple of weeks, but...
You mean it's
a gap.
You've had a gap of a couple of weeks as you waited for this to be refilled?
To be refilled, yeah.
And at that time, what do they tell you?
We'll let you know as soon as it comes in.
At first, drug makers blamed the shortage on pandemic supply chain issues, but the real reason was spiking demand. People all over the world were realizing losing weight could be as simple as taking a weekly shot.
With Wegovy, I lost 35 pounds.
GLP-1s have been really groundbreaking from a weight loss and reversing diabetes perspective.
Dr. Jessica Chen explains the weight loss effect created a stampede for these medications, leaving many people who need them to treat disease unable to get them. So the FDA declared a shortage, which made it possible for compound pharmacies to make the drugs, multiplying the supply.
Compounded medications are the same ingredients, but produced by a compounding pharmacy. And that's only allowed when there's a shortage of the brand name medications.
Now, almost anyone with a weight loss problem can get these medications online or at a local compounding pharmacy for a fraction of the cost charged by big pharmaceutical companies, which invented them. But those multinationals who invested millions to create these revolutionary drugs are pushing the FDA to call off the shortage. Last October, Eli Lilly's weight loss drug Zepbound and Mounjaro came off the FDA's shortage list, and compounders were told to stop making it. But days later, the FDA reversed its decision. And last month, here in Florida, a federal judge tossed out a lawsuit filed by Novo Nordisk, which makes Wegovy and Ozempic. But the drug makers are not giving up. Novo Nordisk telling our I-Team that it's committed to continuing to take legal action against compounding pharmacies and other entities that are putting patient safety at risk by selling unapproved semaglutide drugs with high levels of impurities. The American Diabetes Association shares those safety concerns.
Our stance is until safety can really be established for these products, that we look at alternatives to really bridge people until they're available.
But the trade group that represents many compounding pharmacies, which are doing a booming business in these products, isn't buying it.
Just because they're not FDA approved doesn't inherently mean they're unsafe, even though that's what's being applied a lot in the media.
Tanel Davis says the drug makers have launched a series of false attacks, claiming that drugs are not in short supply, or that the active ingredients to make them is difficult to duplicate safely.
Compounding pharmacies exist under this regulatory framework, and as long as a patient is sourcing, using a state licensed compounding pharmacy, they can have fairly good assurance that that pharmacy is complying with all of the standards that they're required to.
Meanwhile, the GLP-1 market is exploding.
Get Noom GLP-1.
That's why we created Weight Loss by Hims. 100% online access to GLP-1 injections for as little as $1.99 per month.
Demand keeps growing as more and more insurance companies drop anti-obesity drugs from coverage plans. Many Americans who are losing weight and getting healthier, they can't afford to keep up with the prescriptions, which can cost up to $1,000 a month. That makes the market for cheaper versions from compounding pharmacies even bigger. And the health benefits of losing weight are undeniable, from lowering risk of heart attack and stroke to allowing some people to stop taking diabetes medications altogether, which is what Bruce is aiming for.
The goal is to drop my A1C and become medication free.
That's kind of really the sad thing here, is that there are people that really need these medications for their diabetes, and then people who are really taking all of the supply for other reasons.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people will say, well, obviously type 2 and some of these other serious diseases need to be addressed, but, even there are people who are pre-diabetic who probably can use them, but insurance is not giving them that option. So the GLP-1s that are made by the compounding pharmacies are definitely needed. I think at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, what's going on in Washington? Will the FDA be changing based on the political winds? And I think they might. But does that mean they're going to make it so that the GLP-1s are no longer produced by compound pharmacies? And we'll just have to wait to see. But obviously, you saw the legal challenges that are being faced by these by the FDA and in these compounding pharmacies. So there's a lot in play here. I think at the end of the day, a lot of people are just worried about, will I still be able to buy these things? And I think the answer, at least for now, is yes.
All right, Jim Grimes, thanks for being here with us this morning.